The streamers were the school colors, blue and gold, and they were slightly uneven in the way that decorations are when 12-year-olds have put them up themselves, which is to say, they were perfect. The auditorium had the particular warmth of a room filled with people who have come to watch someone they love do something for the first time, and I had been sitting in the third row for 20 minutes already because I had arrived early enough to get a seat, or I knew Maya would be able to find my face when she walked out. My sister, Claudia, was in the seat to my left. She had arrived 10 minutes after me and had settled in with the particular energy she carries to family events, a surface warmth that functions as cover for a layer underneath it that I had spent years learning to recognize, and years before that, failing to name. She had been making comments since we sat down. Small ones, the kind that are quiet enough to be deniable, specific enough to land. Something about the auditorium, something about the other parents, something about the science project that Maya had worked on for 9 weeks and that was going to be read aloud from the podium that evening. Each one delivered in the register of casual observation, the way people deliver things when they want the impact without the accountability. And then, as Maya's name was announced and the distinction read, honor roll and the science project distinction, in the voice of Dr. Okafor, who spoke about Maya's work with the specificity of someone who had actually read it, Claudia leaned slightly toward me and said in a murmur, "Must be nice when the teacher feels sorry for you." I did not respond. Maya had just walked onto the stage in the dress we had chosen together on a Saturday 2 weeks earlier, a green dress with small white flowers that she had stood in front of the mirror in for a long time before deciding, yes, this one. And she was looking out at the auditorium for my face, and I was looking back at her, and there was nothing else in the world that was going to interrupt that. My name is Wren. I am 41 years old, and I have been a licensed family therapist in private practice for 14 years. I work primarily with children and adolescents and the families they live inside, which means I have spent 14 years sitting across from people and helping them name the dynamics that are shaping them in ways they cannot always see from the inside. I am good at this work. I believe in it, and I have the specific, complicated relationship with it that therapists develop when the dynamics they spend their professional lives identifying are operating in their own family with an intimacy that professional training does not insulate you from. Maya is 12 years old. She is quiet in the way that some children are quiet, not shy, not withdrawn, but observant in a way that means she is absorbing more than she is saying, and the absorption has always been evident in her work. Her science project that year had been on soil microbiomes and their relationship to plant resilience, which she had chosen because we had a garden and she had been curious, and which she had developed into something that her teacher had described to me at a parent conference as genuinely original thinking. I had sat in that conference and tried to look like a parent receiving information normally instead of like a person who was trying not to cry. Claudia has been in Maya's life since Maya was born, and the dynamic between them has had a quality that I recognized professionally before I was willing to name it personally. Claudia's comments about Maya have always arrived in the register of concern or humor, never cruel in the way that would be unambiguous, always cushioned in the way that makes the comment feel like observation rather than undermining. I had known this. I had not done enough about it because the timing was never right, and because the comments were never loud enough, and because I had been absorbing the dynamic for so long that acting on it felt like disrupting something structural rather than correcting something wrong. After the ceremony, as families gathered in the lobby, in the particular warm chaos of a graduation reception, Dr. Okafor approached me. She said she would like a brief word, privately, and the expression on her face was the careful professional expression of someone who has something specific to say and is choosing the right way to say it. I asked Maya to stay with her grandmother, who had come from 2 hours away for this day, and I followed Dr. Okafor through the lobby to a small staff room off the corridor. Claudia was still in the lobby with our mother. The door closed. Dr. Okafor put a folder on the table between us, and she said, "I need to tell you what I observed during the ceremony, and I need to show you something." The woman seated behind Claudia and me during the ceremony had been a member of Dr. Okafor's administrative staff, present in an official capacity at the ceremony. She had heard what Claudia said. She had heard it clearly and noted it because Maya was among the students being specifically recognized that evening, and the school had a formal commitment, part of a school culture policy adopted the prior year, to protecting the integrity of recognition experiences for students receiving academic distinctions. The administrative colleague had written a contemporaneous note, what she heard, the timestamp, the seat location. This was the first document in the folder. The second document was something I had not expected. It was a behavioral incident report filed 3 weeks earlier by Maya's homeroom teacher. I will tell you what it said, because understanding it is the reason everything else in that room mattered. 3 weeks before the graduation ceremony, Maya had come to her homeroom teacher visibly distressed after a family event. She had not cried, she had not described a crisis. She had sat down in the classroom after school and asked the teacher a question that the teacher had found significant enough to document formally. She had asked whether it was normal for adults to say discouraging things about children's achievements. She had said there was an adult in her family who made comments that made her feel like her work wasn't real. She had not named anyone. She had asked whether that was something that happened in other families too, or whether it was just hers. The teacher had spent 30 minutes with her. She had validated her experience, and she had encouraged her to speak with someone she trusted, and she had filed the report as a matter of protocol, not as a crisis report, but as a documented observation that a student in her care had described an ongoing pattern that was affecting her emotional state. I am a therapist. I read incident reports. I have filed the professional equivalent many times, and I have helped parents understand them many more. I sat in that room and I read this one, and I understood every clinical implication of what I was reading, and then I sat with the fact that Maya had gone to her teacher. She had not come to me. She had gone to her teacher. I sat with what that meant for me, not as a therapist, as her mother, for a long moment before I could continue. Dr. Okafor was patient. She has the quality that the best school administrators have, which is the ability to sit with a parent in a difficult moment without filling the silence prematurely. She explained the protocol. The school was not making a formal referral. The report was in Maya's file as documentation, and the school counselor was available if I felt additional support would be helpful. She said all of this professionally and completely, and then she said something that was not in the protocol. She said, "You should know that your daughter is one of the most quietly determined students I have seen in 11 years at the school. Whatever she has been navigating it without letting it touch her work. That is remarkable. But it should not have to be remarkable." I have said versions of that sentence to other parents in other rooms. I have said it in the gentle, certain way that clinical experience gives you when you are telling a parent something important about their child that the parent needed to hear. Sitting on the other side of it was a different experience entirely. I thanked Dr. Okafor. I returned to the lobby. Maya ran to me with the specific joy of a 12-year-old who has just been publicly recognized and is still electric with it. The certificate in her hand, the green dress with the small white flowers, the face that had found mine in the auditorium and had seen nothing complicated there. I held her and I told her the things that were true, that I was proud, that the science project had been extraordinary, that the whole room had known it when Dr. Okafor read it aloud. Claudia was nearby. She said something about how Maya must be tired and should probably get something to eat soon, in the tone of a person gently managing a child's excitement back to a manageable register. I watched Maya's expression shift, a small and specific adjustment, the way a child recalibrates when an adult has introduced a cooler temperature into a warm room. I said nothing in the lobby. I was not going to have the conversation in front of Maya, and I was not going to have it at a reception, and I was not going to let anything else make a mark on the evening that was supposed to belong to my daughter. I photographed Maya in the dress. I let her show her grandmother the certificate. I watched her eat 2 pieces of cake and talk to her friends and be 12 years old on a night that was about her, and I made sure my face told her nothing except that I was glad to be there. In the car on the way home, Maya fell asleep in the back seat, in the sudden, complete way that children fall asleep when they have spent every resource they had on a day and there is nothing left to spend. The certificate was in her lap. The street lights moved across the windshield, and I drove in silence, and I thought about a folder on a table in a staff room off a school lobby, and I made a decision. I called Claudia on Saturday morning. I asked if she could meet for coffee. She said yes with the ease of someone who does not yet know what the coffee is for. We sat across from each other at a table near the window. Claudia had her usual Saturday morning quality, relaxed, expansive, the version of herself that shows up when there is no specific occasion to perform for. I had nothing in front of me. No folder, no notes, just 14 years of clinical practice and the specific clarity that comes when you have decided that a conversation is necessary and you are going to have it correctly. I told her what Dr. Okafor had told me. I described the administrative colleague's note. I described the folder. Then, I told her about the behavioral incident report. I told her that Maya had gone to her homeroom teacher and had asked whether it was normal for adults to say discouraging things about children's achievements. I told her that Maya had described an adult in her family who made comments that made her feel like her work wasn't real. I told her that this had been documented in Maya's school file for 3 weeks before the graduation ceremony. I did not editorialize. I did not perform anger. I have spent 14 years learning that the most effective version of a difficult conversation is the one that presents the facts with enough clarity that the other person has to meet them, rather than the feeling underneath them. Claudia began to say something defensive. It lasted approximately 4 minutes. The usual responses, the usual framings, the usual suggestion that she had been misunderstood or that the intention had been different from the impact. I let her finish. Then I said, I hear that you didn't intend harm. I'm telling you that harm was documented by 2 separate people at the school where my daughter spends her days and that it has been in her file for 3 weeks. That is what we're talking about. Not intentions, documentation. I told her that Maya had not come to me with this. I told her I was being honest with myself about what that meant, that there were ways I had not created enough safety for Maya to bring me the difficulty she was experiencing, and that this was something I was taking seriously as her mother. I was not asking Claudia to carry that part. I was telling her because I believed in honesty, even when it was uncomfortable for me. Then I said the last thing. I told her I was Maya's mother and a licensed therapist, and I was telling her directly the comments needed to stop, that I was not making a threat, but that I was telling her that I would take steps appropriate to protecting my daughter if the pattern continued, and that those steps would be grounded in documentation that already existed. The defensiveness had run out of room by then. What replaced it was not a full apology. I was not expecting a full apology, because full apologies require a level of self-awareness that arrives slowly when it arrives at all. What replaced it was something quieter and more real. A silence, then a sentence that said she hadn't realized how it landed, and then another silence. I did not tell her that not realizing was insufficient. I filed it where it belonged and moved forward. I scheduled 4 sessions with the school counselor for Maya the following week. Not because Maya was in crisis. She was not. She was doing well. The graduation night had been the high point of her academic year, and she was carrying it proudly. But because Maya deserved the space to talk to someone outside her immediate world about her own experience, and because I was self-aware enough to know that I was not the right person to provide that space. I am her mother. I am also a therapist. These 2 things are not always compatible in the same room, and Maya's well-being required me to know the difference. Maya's science project was submitted to the regional competition in March. She placed second. She came home with a certificate and a small acrylic trophy and put them on her wall next to the honor roll letter and the graduation certificate, a small gallery of evidence that she had been working hard and that the work had been seen. I told Claudia at a family dinner the following month. She said that's wonderful, without elaboration, without the undertone, without the comment that arrived a half-beat later to reduce the temperature of the room. I marked it. I did not make a ceremony of it. I simply noticed it the way you notice when a pattern changes, quietly, accurately, with the clinical precision of someone who has been watching long enough to know the difference between a genuine shift and a temporary adjustment. The pattern changed. Dr. Okafor had said it should not have to be remarkable, that a child should not have to be exceptional at managing difficulty in order to survive it. I had sat on the other side of that sentence for months, sitting with what I had and had not provided, the ways I had understood something professionally without acting on it personally in time. I had acted on it now. Maya's wall has the certificates on it. She does not ask me whether anyone will say something discouraging about the next one. She has started talking to me about the next project she wants to do. Something about water quality in urban environments, she said, because she read something that made her curious. She is 12 years old and she is curious, and her work is extraordinary. No one is going to say otherwise where I can hear it, and I have made sure the people who matter know exactly where I stand. If you have ever had to protect a child's confidence from an adult in your own family and found an unexpected ally in a school, a teacher, or a professional who saw what you had not yet been able to act on, I would like to hear your story. And if this one stayed with you, subscribe. There are more coming.